Hi all, I'm Tom Sawyer. Welcome to my kitchen. Oh, lighting is kind of cool. Really, this is in utterly fabulous condition. But this is all beside the point. My whole question that I want to address in this particular video is, for whom was Professor Hoffman writing Modern Magic? Yeah, it appeared in a periodical for boys. Footnote number 1. A large proportion of the readership of Every Boy's magazine consisted of girls, which isn't too illogical. I made a little bit of a study on that whole question of who was reading it, and about 3 years ago, I think it was about 3 years ago, I wrote another book about Professor Hoffman. And I think it was going to have a heavy emphasis on modern magic and the genesis of modern magic and what kind of distribution did it get and who was the intended audience and all that stuff. And it had a lot of other stuff in it. And it actually, even though I'm making it seem like I was just a will-o'-the-wisp that I never really did anything with, I actually wrote essentially the entire book. But then I did something that I don't usually do when it comes to my magic publications. I said to myself, hey, wait a second, is there any kind of an audience for this book? Having answered that question in the negative, I determined to allow the manuscript to languish, at least for the time being. I may change my mind, and maybe I'll issue it regardless of the lack of audience. Or maybe an audience will magically appear. That'd be fitting, wouldn't it? And the audience will come and they'll lift me on their shoulders and carry me to a printer, and maybe stuff like large quantities of cash into my hands. I don't know. It could happen, I suppose. My point is that it was in connection with the writing of that book that I did a fairly detailed study on the question of male readership versus female readership of Every Boy's magazine. I also did some other detailed analysis. I looked at the apparent percentage of readers in London and outside of London, and took a look at the population of London and of the rest of England, what the likely breakdown in the distribution of Modern Magic First Edition was. Like how many copies went to London. I think I figured that out of the edition of 2000, maybe only 500 copies were sold in London. London, with a population of perhaps 3 million people at the time. That's something to think about. Okay, back to the other video now. But anyway, the question is, to whom was he addressing the book? Well, you might say the answer to that is obvious. But I would say the answer to that is anything but obvious. I actually think, and I was kind of looking at my manuscript, I actually think that Hoffman was writing the book for an audience of adults. Nonetheless, it was published in a magazine for boys, or for boys and girls. Why do I think this was not written for children, was not written for boys, was not written for girls? Well, consider his description of the bullet catching trick. Okay. Now, in Modern Magic, Hoffman describes the bullet catching trick. He calls it the charmed bullet. Now, I don't know about you. That's not the kind of thing I would put in a book for boys or for boys and girls. Why? I think probably there's a high level of danger and a decent chance that anybody performing the bullet catching trick would have it end in a catastrophe. There are a lot of other tricks, I really don't like the word trick, but oh well, in Modern Magic that there isn't one kid in 1,000 would be in a position to perform. For example, of course, the Sphinx illusion is a great example. The aerial suspension is another example. And Hoffman kind of waffles a little bit. He even almost suggests that, yeah, not everybody's going to be able to do these things. I won't get into that in detail, but So those are among my reasons for thinking that this was not really written for kids. It wasn't written for boys. You know, if Hoffman wanted to address something to a young audience, he was very capable of doing that, as is shown by his work, The Young Wizard, which was serialized, and which I actually published in what I'll refer to as book form. That was another one of my publishing, I guess I'll call it a publishing mistake. Although now, the book version that I publish will always be the first edition in book form of that book. Isn't that interesting? It turned out being way, way worse of a production than I had originally envisioned. But oh well, that's life, I guess. Okay, I guess that's it for now. I think I've covered this topic. Not really adequately, but as much as I'm going to in this video. Talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.